Hello, it's Kenny at Kaholo again, and today I've got a video to show you how PyTest is done the Kaholo way. PyTest is a test platform for Python projects. It does primarily unit testing, but also integration, performance, and other types of testing. For Python projects, there's others you can choose from apart from PyTest. There's unit test, robot, behave, lettuce, nose. Several to choose from, but PyTest is one of the most popular, and that's what I'm showing you today. Okay, so a typical use case would be the developer has made some fix or enhancement and checked in that code, and therefore we want to run this pipeline automatically each time the code changes. And that's why the first thing we do is we clone the code into the Kaholo agent. That's what the git clone action is for. And then just to show the full features of the PyTest plugin, I'm running 3 different types of tests. And one of them is a simple pass, one of them is going to get mixed results, and then one of them is the unit tests on an actual large project. It's got hundreds of unit tests in there. And then one of the options with PyTest is to output a JSON report. JSON works really well with integrations in Kaholo pipelines. So for example, if we wanted to send the results to X-Ray or in Jira, or maybe TestRail, one of our test management applications, it makes it easier to do that, and we'll see more on that later. In this case, my X-Ray is disconnected because I don't have a license for X-Ray and my trial expired. But I am going to upload it into the static website in Google Cloud Platform, and then also send a notification off by Slack. Now there are a lot of options around this too. For example, if you are using X-Ray and Jira, so you have a valid license, we could trigger the whole pipeline off of when story items moved into the test with swim lane in your Jira Scrum board. But in my case, we're just looking for code changes. I would use a normal GitHub trigger. We have triggers for several different specific repositories like GitHub, but today I'm using a generic trigger as well. And the way the generic trigger works is basically any system could trigger that if it knows the right URL. But I'm just going to use curl in a command line. So I'll go ahead and trigger that pipeline. And when we come back here, you can see the execute button is whirling now to show that the pipeline is in action. And what's happening with the PyTest actions here is each one of them is creating a brand new Python-enabled Docker image and then installing all the modules and things that are required to run each of the 3 tests that are included in these 3 different actions. So that does take some time to get that all set up and then finally run PyTest. If we look at the simple passing test, this is probably the one that'll finish the quickest. It's just running a single test and there's no JSON reporting. With my mixed results test, this is 10 tests and I think a few of them will fail. I'm outputting the full JSON report so we can see what that looks like. And then with the regular iSort module, this is a real project I pulled off the internet. iSort does some kind of sorting. It's not important what it does though, but it's hundreds of tests, and that's why this is interesting. And down here I'm just giving it a summary JSON report. So let's look in the execution results, and we can see here that some of them have already finished. The simple passing one finished quite a while ago, and this is what the output of PyTest normally looks. You just get that text in the final result, and it shows that one test has passed. Here's the one with the mixed results. So down here you can see there were 10 different tests, and there's probably details on the failures here, but the summary shows that there was 3 failed and 7 passed. And then recall we're outputting the JSON report for this, so if I go to the full report, you can see we got the same information here, but in JSON format, which makes it easily accessible for downstream actions in the pipeline, and that's one of the powers of using the JSON. PyTest does just spit out a file if you do JSON reporting, and that's why we use this JSON plugin to read that file off the disk and then give it to us in the final results and in the code layer. And now even the full unit test is finished, and so we can look at the report from that. And this is a summary JSON report, so we can see that 510 tests passed and 9 failed and 1 was skipped for reason of some error. Alright, back to the design then. Oh yeah, okay, so we've got our reports now. I have not sent one to X-Ray or Jira. If I did, though, I have this result from earlier on. I can show you what it looks like. Here I've got a summary of my 10 tests and whether they passed or failed. And if any of these fail, then the overall execution status in Jira is a fail. And if it passed, like in the simple case, one simple passing test, then of course you get a pass in Jira. But the main report here for the big iSort unit test was to put it in the static website and then send it off to Slack. So I'll come to Slack next. And here you can see we just got a link including 510 passed and 9 failed. This comes from that JSON report. And then here's the link. If I click on it, it takes me off to see the full JSON report. Well, this is a summary, not full detailed report, but we could, of course, do it either way. And let's see, what else? Oh, I should show you, like looking in Slack, you might think, well, gee, how did you get the message to say exactly how many passed and how many failed? And I am using a little bit of magic here on the code layer. So in our report here, summary report, if we go to execution results, you will recall that we did have this passed and failed down here. Oh, that's the full report. We want the summary one. Here we go. Passed and failed, 5, 10, and 9. So what I did is, in my design of the pipeline, in the Notify Slack section, down where I put the actual message, you can see I turned on the code layer, and I'm using this function, Notify Slack. So if we go back to the code, you can see it's just one line of code here, but that's the actual Slack message. And where I put in how many passed and how many failed, I'm using that JSON report to get result summary passed for the number passed, and over here result summary failed for the numbers that failed. The rest of this code, well, this is where we upload to the static website, but most of the code down here on the bottom is for formulating the X-ray reports. That's to make it do this kind of thing for X-ray. Most of the things, though, you don't have to write any code to use Kaholo. You can orchestrate this, and the Slack notification might only include a link. It might not be as detailed. But the idea is, anything that you do want to customize to do something a little better than the plugins do by themselves, that code layer is always available. So you can really spruce things up and make them as useful as possible. And that about sums it up for PyTest in Kaholo. Thanks for your time and attention, and hope you enjoyed the video. Bye now.